Hello, everybody. This is Susan Kokinda with your midweek update. Today is October 2nd, so here we are in October. Recently, Hillary Clinton warned of an October surprise that would distort and pervert Kamala Harris's image. But I think David Sachs, a tech entrepreneur who, like many in Silicon Valley, has shifted over to the side of sanity and Donald Trump, was much more on target. He said the October surprise is World War III. So today I'm going to look at how that October surprise is playing out, obviously in the context of the escalating war in the Mideast, last night's debate, the aftermath of the hurricane, and the dock workers' strike. But I'm going to put it in the following context. There is a tectonic political realignment going on in the United States. Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard made that clear at an event I attended in Dearborn, Michigan last Saturday. RFK said, "Today, the Democratic Party is the party of war, and the Republican Party is the party of peace." Tulsi continued, "The Democratic Party is unrecognizable. They only have allegiance to party. This is a banana republic. And this is why we cannot let Kamala Harris into the presidency and why we must elect Donald Trump." I'll come back with more on this event a little bit later, but you can find an extensive analysis, including video clips from the event, on the Promethean Action website, and I encourage you to subscribe. So you did see that realignment last night in the debate when, in his closing remarks, Tim Walz, like his running mate, Kamala Harris, draped himself in the mantle of Dick Cheney. In a New York Times roundup of various commentaries on who won the debate, one commenter said Walz lost with a closing statement boasting of a Harris coalition from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift. The commenter continued, "Socialism, endless wars, and manufactured team feelings are the last thing voters want or need in November. What Americans need is the new opposition party," so named by J.D. Vance in an interview with Tucker Carlson, which I covered in last week's update. That new opposition party is shedding the Wall Street and neocon faction of the Republican Party, allowing that faction to gravitate over to the new, joyful coalition of Kamala Harris and Dick Cheney. But the new opposition party is the party of working people, producers, and peace. The emergence of this new political formation is an existential threat to the ruling elites. This is a movement which revives the principles of the American Revolution, which was a victory against imperialism, not, by the way, against communism, which was later created by the imperialists. This is a movement against which the imperial elite will wage war and use every tool at its disposal, including assassination, psychological warfare, and other tools to maintain its power. In fact, I would say that there is a direct relationship between the consolidation of this movement and the danger of World War III, because at this point in history, that may be about the only thing that can stop it, especially as their Psy-War grip on the minds of the American people continues to loosen. Again, returning to that New York Times debate wrap-up, this was reflected when a member of the Times editorial board wrote, "Vance did an excellent job of impersonating a decent man." So let's turn to World War III and the escalating crisis in the Mideast. Even CNN admitted this in an article yesterday, that the new strategic reality is that the once mighty United States is powerless to rein in its ally or to influence other major belligerents in a fast worsening regional crisis. And that pretty much sums it up. Donald Trump's statement on the new escalation was clear and simple. He said, "Under President Trump, we had no war in the Mideast, no war in Europe, harmony in Asia, no inflation, No Afghanistan crisis. Instead, we had peace. Now, war and the threat of war is raging everywhere, and the two incompetents running this country are leading us to the brink of World War III. It is a testament to the bizarro propaganda world that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris live in that Walz kept trying to put the responsibility for this in the debate last night on Donald Trump. But as Tulsi Gabbard said, we are here because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's foreign policies. The likelihood ends in nuclear war if Kamala Harris is elected president, and that should be in the forefront of our minds. And as David Sachs said in that comment about the October surprise being World War III, he said, get these jokers out of here. January 20th can't come soon enough. Now let's turn to the economic crisis, the other crumbling pillar of the Biden-Harris policies. First, let's look at the hurricane and its impact on the southeastern part of the United States. The hapless character of the Biden-Harris response is about as epic as the hurricane itself, with Biden on the beach and Harris raising money from Hollywood millionaires and billionaires as the tragedy unfolded. It appears that it was only when they realized that this was going to look politically bad for them that they began to rouse themselves into photo op action. Of course, last night's debate moderators and Tim Walz wanted to turn this into a propaganda tool about the dangers of climate change and to push the green agenda. The reality is that climate does change, as the receding of the glaciers 10,000 years ago here in Michigan, where I'm sitting, shows. And this was obviously not caused by the actions of industrial society. And natural disasters do occur. In prehistoric times, the Nile River flooded in Egypt severely and negatively impacting the population. But then, being humans, they created a system which harnessed the rising waters, allowing for vastly increased food production and vastly increased population growth, and created one of the earliest known advanced civilizations. But the imperial elite, throughout recorded history, have demonstrated precisely a hatred of that quality of exerting dominion over nature. Instead, they argue, as the green agenda does, that mankind must stand down in the face of Mother Nature and reduce its footprint and its population. Had our country been acting sanely in the last, 60 years, say, continuing with the intended water management policies laid out by John Kennedy, would it have been possible to ameliorate the disaster that just took place in North Carolina and Georgia and elsewhere? I can't say, but the post-disaster response has been a disaster, and the ability to rebuild this region demands a complete change in the economic philosophy of this country. And to the disruptions that will be caused by an extended dock workers' strike, disruptions to our very vulnerable outsourced supply chains, and the question of a new economic policy focused on physical reality and not on the whims of Wall Street and free trade becomes clear. It's in that context that I want to return to the extraordinary dialogue which RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard conducted in Dearborn, Michigan, this last Saturday, an event hosted by the Trump-Vance campaign. I've referenced their remarks on the danger of World War III already, but it was in the discussion of economics that something really stunning came forward. Kennedy brought up the fact that he's now asked by people, how can you be MAGA? MAGA is the 1950s. It's Joe McCarthy. It's the era before civil rights legislation. So Kennedy asked Donald Trump, when you say make America great again, to what era does the again refer to? And Trump told him it refers to the Kennedy administration. It is this emerging political realignment which is an existential threat to the elites. This is especially poignant in the Detroit area, where Kennedy and Gabbard spoke. It was in the late 1950s and early 1960s that the Detroit metropolitan area had the highest per capita standard of living in the United States. Not because we had the then equivalent of Taylor Swift's or BlackRock, but because the auto industry had built the middle class, or really more appropriately, the working class. This was where, as RFK Jr. said, one income could raise a family and own a home and take a vacation and save money. Policies that were reflected strongly by J.D. Vance in the debate last night. That economic policy, grounded in protecting our producers and our workers, is a pillar of both the new Republican Party platform and what Promethean Action is calling the American System 2.0. In the remaining weeks of this campaign, this decisive, critical campaign, we must keep three things at the forefront of our outreach and our organizing: the danger of World War III under the lunacy of the current regime, the ongoing live assassination threat to Donald Trump, and the promise of reviving this uniquely American policy. Trump, J.D. Vance, RFK Jr., they understand this. The old guard of the Republican Party, never mind today's Democrats, even those in the Republican Party who are going along for the ride to get Donald Trump elected, they don't understand this, or perhaps they actually oppose it. That may be the reason why the Republican Party platform has been so underplayed by the party apparatus. On a call last week with MAGA activists in Pennsylvania, Promethean PAC organizers learned that the Pennsylvania grassroots have no literature to campaign with. Fortunately, Promethean PAC is working with activists in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, and elsewhere to provide them with the material they need. The half-page flyer, which highlights the new platform's commitment to the forgotten men and women of America and to returning the Republican Party to its roots as the party of industry and workers, is filling this enormous gap. In collaboration with local parties and local activists, more than 50,000 copies of this flyer are being deployed into battleground states, with more to come depending on resources. The elites are desperately afraid of this. It is one of the reasons why Harris and Walz keep coming back to Project 2025, because that is not the Republican Party platform or Trump's policies. This is a new Republican Party. This is a new opposition party which hasn't existed for at least 50 years, or 40 years, as J.D. Vance said last week. They don't want you to know about this. And in fact, if I'm going to return to that New York Times post-debate wrap-up one final time to show you how freaked out they are. One of their editorial board members said, J.D. Vance was more effective in presenting a version of his party's ticket that might broaden its appeal. He made Trumpism sound polite, calm, and coherent. The question is whether voters will credit a performance so strikingly at odds with the behavior and views of the man he was purporting to represent. Or, to take it out of George Orwell's newspeak, if the American people see the actual policies of Donald Trump, rather than the propaganda version that they present, then the American people will support Donald Trump overwhelmingly, put him in the White House, and give the world a fighting chance to survive and move forward. This has been your Midweek Update. Thanks for listening.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.